Who was Osama bin Laden? Osama bin Laden intent on driving Western influence from the Muslim world. He joined the Afghan resistance when the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979. After the Soviet withdrawal, bin Laden formed the Al-Qaeda network that carried out global strikes against Western interests, culminating in the September 11, 2001, attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. On May 2, 2011, President Barack Obama announced 54-year-old bin Laden was killed in a terrorist compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. Early life of Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was born Osama bin Mohammed bin Awad bin Laden on March 10, 1957, in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, to construction billionaire Mohammed Awad bin Laden and Mohammed's 10th wife, Syrian-born Alia Ghanem. Bin Laden was the 17th of 52 children born to Mohammed, but the only child from his father's marriage to Alia Ghanem. Bin Laden barely came to know his father before his parents divorced. After his family split, bin Laden's mother took him to live with her new husband, Mohammed al-Attaz. The couple had 4 children together, and bin Laden spent most of his childhood living with his step-siblings and attending school in Jeddah. Radical education of Osama bin Laden. At the age of 14, bin Laden was recognized as an outstanding, if somewhat shy, student at Al-Thagr. As a result, he received a personal invitation to join a small Islamic study group with the promise of earning extra credit. Bin Laden, along with the sons of several prominent Jeddah families, were told the group would memorize the entire Quran, a prestigious accomplishment, by the time they graduated from the institution. But the group soon lost its original focus, and during this time, bin Laden received the beginnings of an education in some of the principles of jihad. The teacher who educated the children, influenced in part by a sect of Islam called the Brotherhood, began instructing his pupils in the importance of instituting a pure Islamic law around the Arab world. By the second year of their studies, bin Laden and his friends had openly adopted the attitude and styles of teen Islamic activists. They preached the importance of instituting a pure Islamic law at Al-Thagr, grew beards, and wore shorter pants and wrinkled shirts in imitation of the Prophet's dress. Bin Laden graduated from Al-Thagr in 1976. He then headed to King Abdulaziz University in Jeddah, where he obtained a degree in 1981. Sources share conflicting information about his area of study. He is believed to have studied either public administration or civil engineering, in an effort to join the family business. Wives and children of Osama bin Laden. At the age of 18, bin Laden married his 14-year-old first cousin named Najwa Ghanem, who had been promised to him. And in 1976, the same year he graduated from Al-Thagr, his first child, a son named Abdullah, was born. Bin Laden and Najwa would have 10 more children before they separated shortly before the 9/11 attacks. Bin Laden married at least 4 more times. His second wife, Khadija, bore him 3 more children before their 1995 divorce. He remained married to his final 3 wives, Kyra, Siham, and Amal, until his death in 2011, and they bore him the final 10 of his 24 children. These final 3 wives remained with bin Laden when he went into hiding in 2001. Along with at least 8 of his children, were with him during the deadly raid on the Abbottabad, Pakistan, hideout during which bin Laden was killed. Bin Laden's children are Abdullah, Abdulrahman, Saad, Omar, Osman, Muhammad, Fatima, Iman, Ladin Bakir, Rukia, Noor, Ali, Amr, Aisha, Hamza, Khadija, Khalid, Miriam, Sumaya, Safiya, Asia, Ibrahim, Zainab, and Hussein. At least 2 of bin Laden's sons were killed during U.S. military options. Saad died during a military drone attack in 2009, and in 2019. President Donald Trump announced that Hamza bin Laden had been killed during an anti-terrorist campaign, believed to have occurred between 2017 and early 2019. Osama bin Laden from hero to exile. When the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in 1979, bin Laden joined the Afghan resistance, believing it was his duty as a Muslim to fight the occupation. He relocated to Peshawar, Afghanistan, and using aid from the United States under the CIA program Operation Cyclone, he began training a mujahideen, which is a group of Islamic jihadists. After the Soviets withdrew from the country in 1989, bin Laden returned to Saudi Arabia as a hero, and the United States referred to him and his soldiers as freedom fighters. Yet, bin Laden was quickly disappointed with what he believed was a corrupt Saudi government. And his frustration with the U.S. occupation of Saudi Arabia during the Persian Gulf War led to a growing rift between bin Laden and his country's leaders. Bin Laden spoke publicly against the Saudi government's reliance on American troops, believing their presence profaned sacred soil. After several attempts to silence bin Laden, the Saudis banished the former hero. He lived in exile in Sudan beginning in 1992. Formation of Al-Qaeda. By 1993, bin Laden had formed a secret network known as Al-Qaeda comprised of militant Muslims he had met while serving in Afghanistan. He recruited soldiers based on their ability to listen, their good manners, obedience, and their pledge to follow their superiors. Their goal was to take up the jihadist cause around the world, righting perceived wrongs under the accordance of pure Islamic law. By 1994, after continued advocacy of jihad, the Saudi government forced bin Laden to relinquish his Saudi citizenship and confiscated his passport. His family also disowned him, cutting off his $7 million yearly stipend. Undeterred, bin Laden began executing his plans, and his hope was that Muslims, unified by the battle, would create a single, true Islamic state. In 1996, to forward his goal, Al-Qaeda detonated truck bombs against U.S.-occupied forces in Saudi Arabia. The next year, they claimed responsibility for killing tourists in Egypt. And in 1998, they bombed the U.S. embassies in Nairobi, Kenya, and Tanzania, killing nearly 300 people in the process. Bin Laden's actions abroad didn't go unnoticed by the Sudanese government, and he was exiled from their country in 1996. Not able to return to Saudi Arabia, bin Laden took refuge in Afghanistan, where he received protection from the country's ruling Taliban militia. While under the protection of the Taliban, bin Laden issued a series of fatwas, or religious statements, that declared a holy war against the United States. Among the accusations reared at America were the pillaging of natural resources in the Muslim world and assisting the enemies of Islam. While bin Laden likely used his own money to fund early training and operational costs for Al-Qaeda, the extent of his personal wealth at this time remains unknown. Some early estimates claimed he was worth more than $250 million, though that was likely vastly overstated. He had spent millions setting up businesses and operations in Sudan, only to have that government seize his assets when he was forced to leave the country in 1996. 9/11 attacks. By 2001, bin Laden had attempted and often successfully executed attacks on several countries using the help of Al-Qaeda. On September 11, 2001, bin Laden delivered his most devastating blow to the United States. A small group of bin Laden's Al-Qaeda jihadists hijacked 4 commercial passenger planes in the United States, 2 of which collided into the World Trade Center towers. Another aircraft crashed into the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. A 4th plane was successfully retaken and crashed in Pennsylvania. The intended target of the final aircraft was believed to be the United States Capitol. In all, the attack killed nearly 3,000 civilians. Following the September 11 attacks on the United States, in response, the U.S. government under President George Bush helped lead what became known as the Global War, an international coalition designed to thwart future acts. In October 2001, a joint U.S.-British attack on Afghanistan was launched, aimed at capturing Al-Qaeda's leader and overthrowing the Taliban. Taliban leadership collapsed by the end of 2001, as bin Laden went into hiding. For more than 10 years, he was hunted along the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. In 2004, shortly before President Bush's re-election, bin Laden released a videotaped message publicly claiming responsibility for the attacks on September 11 for the first time. The U.S. involvement in Afghanistan lasted for nearly 2 decades, including periods of fierce counterinsurgent fighting against the Taliban. Death of Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was killed on May 2, 2011, in a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. President Barack Obama announced the 57-year-old's death that day. For over 2 decades, bin Laden has been al-Qaeda's leader and symbol and has continued to plot attacks against our country and our friends and our allies, Obama said in a late-night address to the nation on the night of bin Laden's death. The death of bin Laden marks the most significant achievement to date in our nation's effort to defeat al-Qaeda. He added that his demise should be welcomed by all who believe in peace and human dignity. Bin Laden's death was the result of an 8-month plan the president enacted and CIA Director Leon Panetta led. Approximately 24 members of a classified American Special Forces unit called Naval Special Warfare Development Group, or DEVGRU, raided bin Laden's hideout. Bin Laden was shot several times. The Navy unit took his body as evidence of his death.